So thanks so much, everyone, for jumping on. My name is Kurt Frazier. I'm the VP of Sales here at Grin, and we're super excited to bring to you Grin's next generation platform. We know your challenges today. Hopefully, over the last couple of years, you've seen we've listened. We're solving many of the problems we're experiencing today. In this economic environment, the talks of cost rising, economic turmoil is something small businesses can't afford. Thankfully, we were developed by an orthodontist with his founders. And so everything you're going to see today and you've seen in the past is driven by orthodontists. That's what makes this place so special. So we also know the challenges you guys face of having ineffective processes, depending on your employees, is risky. Monitoring and PMS systems are all do-it-yourself options that are available today, and they require the most expensive assets to run those processes. That's your people. NextGen is going to scale you, your team, and create the most personalized experience possible for your patients through their entire orthodontic journey in your practice. We know patients want convenience, personalization, and your practice needs to modernize in today's environment. These two things you see on the screen, the vision and mission, is why I joined the company. We want to redefine the future of orthodontics by seamlessly blending digital innovation with human connection, transforming how care is delivered, experienced, and scaled across the globe. Our mission to empower you, the orthodontic practices, with the innovative digital solutions that elevate that patient experience, that optimize your efficiency and drive meaningful growth. We were started in 2020. Many of you remember that little pandemic called COVID. And Dr. Adam and team tried to bring the direct-to-consumer philosophy back to you, the specialists. We experienced great growth through these stages. We went to new countries. We listened to you guys, the specialists, and we've been evolving while we listen and you experience this new environment in orthodontics. And we're so excited today, we're getting to announce NextGen that'll include the Grin Copilot and the Grin Care Specialist team. We have a great speaker crew for you guys. I'm going to cover the agenda real quickly. The big reveal of what NextGen is with co-founder and our Grin CEO, Dr. Adam Schulhoff. We're going to talk about scaling from a startup to a thriving practice with Dr. Adam Reynolds. We're going to talk to Marin on our Grin specialist team. And then finally hear from Dr. Jerry Emanuel, who has taken his practice from established to a thriving large practice. So, and finally, we're going to give you a peek behind the curtains on what's coming next, what our R&D team has been working on. And at the very end, we'll talk about promotions and next steps for you guys that haven't gotten started with Grin yet today. So, Dr. Adam?
Thank you very much, Kurt. And I apologize, everybody. We were having a little bit of a technical difficulty with that video, but we are going to see if we can get it up and running and get it out to each and every one of you, because it just gives us a little bit of a immediate insight into some of the cool things that we are building. But before we get to that, I wanted to just first of all thank all of you for taking a little bit of time on a Friday afternoon. For many, it's also the beginning of Passover later tonight, so Chag Sameach to those. When I think about how far Grin has come over the last couple of years, it makes me extremely proud. But what I'm most excited about is what we are introducing this year. You know, we live in a world where most of us orthodontists, I would say at least 80%, are extremely innovative. We have all of these unbelievable pieces of technology that, number one, are being marketed to us, number two, that we're actually implementing in practice. But the reality there is that, unfortunately, none of it right now is connected. And so we've got fragmented technology that's supposed to create efficiencies, and unfortunately, those efficiencies are just not quite there. And that's exactly what our team has done. What we've done is built a platform based on 3 pillars. We call it Grin Care, which is where we take care of that patient that is the ultimate part of your practice. We also have built something called Grin Grow, which actually boosts your revenue. So we're taking care of your patients, we're helping grow your practice, and then Grin Thrive, which is AI-driven tools that help your practice really, really optimize. all at the same time making sure that we're doing it personally so that we don't, as a practice, lose any of that personalization. So when we think about all of these tools, we segment them into the care, grow, and thrive model. So we've got things like remote monitoring, absolutely one small piece of our platform that falls under Grin Care. But we've also got unbelievable tools like virtual consultation, the ability to immediately collaborate with your GPs and with your referrals. That would very solidly fall under Grin Grow. And then we've got also unbelievable tools built in to help your patients, your practice, your teams, and yourself thrive. But all of this technology that we're finally putting together, the one thing that I always come back to is I want to make our lives easier. And sometimes, as you know, technology can give us digital homework. And so what we've built foundationally here to all of this is what we're announcing today, and we call Grin Copilot. Now, we live in a world of AI. Everybody's throwing AI buzzwords at you. But what I always come back to is meaningful technology, meaningful AI. And so what Grin does is actually take our 3D solutions, our imaging AI, and our smart assist automations and tether them, tie them to our Grin Care specialists, human beings that make certain that all of that is running exactly the way you want them to in your practice. At the same time, all of this technology is taking away your digital homework because we have layered on the AI and the Copilot in order to do that for you. And as we start thinking about the different parts of the practice that we're layering on Copilot and our Grin Care specialist, we're talking about every patient in your practice, whether they're aligners, whether they're brackets and wires, whether they're observations, phase ones, retention. We're talking about every stage of treatment, any treatment plan. And so across the entire practice is where you're going to see that care, that growth, and that thriving. And so I look at it as, let's look through a patient journey. Let's take a patient from the moment they first touch your practice. And what does that mean in today's day and age? Whether the patient is walking through your doors and it's an in-person touch point, or through our platform, whether the patient has first touched your practice virtually through remote consultation, or we've even built tools around patients in your GP chairs being able to immediately be referred to your practices as well. So let's take a second on that last one because that's probably something you've never heard of before. There are a lot of different referral programs out there that some practices will pay extra monthly payments for. This is all included in Grin. So imagine a world for a second where some of your referrers are handing the patient a Grin scope to immediately become connected to your practice, or better yet, imagine a world where the dental assistant in the general dentist's office is actually taking the Grin scan of this patient for you, where they are then immediately on your platform later on at night, whenever you have time or a break between patients, you can send them a remote consultation completely asynchronously. And this way, this patient wasn't just handed a business card and said, "Oh, don't forget to call the orthodontist." But rather, this patient is now already touched your practice immediately and virtually by the time they get home that night. And then, of course, the metrics and the data-driven company that we are, the ability to track all of these leads while all of this is going on. And so let's look at some of this, we'll call it the patient journey. We've got that initial touch point with your practice, whether it's virtually or whether it's in practice, and let's talk about the in practice. So imagine for a second, patient walks through your door. We are utilizing technology through Grin to actually initially even capture this patient's records. And so in a world where now it's all about presenting to the patient in an impactful way, We have these patients now come through the door, sit down in our TC room, and this video right here is showing my TC and my TC's office. And we generally do knee to knee across the desk consultations. But what's happening here now actually first is this patient is getting a Grin scan. Again, 34-second scan that's happening. And while that's going on, mom and patient are like, oh, wow, what is that? This is the opportunity for your treatment coordinators to start talking about the differentiators within your practice. Oh, this is Grin. We use Grin so that you are always connected to the practice. During treatment, you will have to come in far fewer for appointments because we have eyes on you all throughout. If you have any questions, we are always available, essentially in your back pocket. Now, what happens and what's really, really impactful is as soon as that Grin scan is taken, we can now actually show the patient their Grin scan. So not just photos, we've got the photos, they're pulled out by the AI automatically, but even a video, so dynamically they can see what's happening in their mouth. And what I do here is I'm sitting in front of my TC's computer, and you'll notice on that back screen, that 3, 2, 1, go, it is now recording what we call a scan review. So that my consultation right here, knee to knee with mom and patient, is actually getting recorded in Grin as a scan review. How often do many of you have patients who are not closing that day, leave the practice and say, oh, well, we've got to go talk to dad? This is suddenly a way where you can bring dad into the consultation room asynchronously. So when they leave this practice now, as you'll see in this patient's app right here, as they're sitting here, we come around the desk, they click on that, and they've already got the video that I just recorded for them. So that you know that when dad is now going to review that recording, dad is actually being virtually brought into the consultation room, which is extremely impactful. So now mom and patient leave, dad gets to see the full consultation, sees exactly what's going on in his daughter's mouth. Even more so now, they are connected over the platform to be able to virtually talk to our treatment coordinators. And not just talk, but also see the financial review, which also is getting recorded. And then we've also got integrations with lots of different platforms. As you see here, an integration we're working on with Cedar as an example, so that patients are not just needing to, or we'll call them prospective patients, needing to respond to a phone call or an email, but rather through an app that they now have on their phone, they're able to immediately push and communicate with you, see the video of the consultation, see the video of the financial presentation, and also click to pay, click to sign up for treatment, etc. So really, really impactful tools so that they are constantly connected all throughout that process, and then can ultimately close virtually as well. So now let's move to this prospective patient, says yes to treatment, comes in for their bonding day, whether it's attachments, whether it's brackets and wires. Remember, they have now already been introduced and onboarded onto the Grin platform in the treatment coordinator's chair. So we take 30 seconds chairside after the bonding to have the patient take their first Grin scan on their own. Now, the other piece that we implemented early into the platform, as you'll see here, is the fact that we have all of these videos. So when we talk about oral hygiene instructions, aligner tips, keeping things clean with braces, etc., it's already populated in the platform. You can save a lot of minutes chairside so that you don't actually have to go over OHI and all of these other things, because as we know, patients really aren't listening at that point anyway, and then have a million questions when they're home. Now it's all for them right there in the platform, with the ability to drop any files you want that are practice branded. So if you guys have videos that you've created for your practice, now immediately push across the platform so that patient has all of this in a library on their app itself. So here's where things get really interesting. We've got a patient that's leaving your practice, and many times we've got a lot of questions on these patients' minds, right? We, of course, have done this a million times, but patients will leave the practice saying, well, I was a little nervous. I had my braces put on, I got my aligners, I wasn't sure if I knew what to do. Well, number one, now they are fully connected with you, basically in their back pocket. Number two, Grin has an unbelievable team. Think of this team as all of you orthodontists out there have had assistants throughout your careers who you kept on saying, oh, I could never imagine not having this assistant in my practice. This assistant so-and-so knows more orthodontics than most of my colleagues. Well, that's the team that we have put together. We call them our Grin Care Specialists, who literally will hold your patient's hands through the process. And in a couple of minutes, you're going to hear from Marin, who runs our Grin Care team, and she'll be having a conversation with Kurt so that you can see exactly how we seamlessly integrate these Grin Care specialists into essentially your practice, becoming a virtual extension of your practice. So when your patient goes home and has questions, it's not your practice that needs to respond to them. We will actually do that for you. Even more impactfully, when we tether the Grin Care specialist to our clinical co-pilot, this is where things get really interesting. So imagine for a second that this patient is now on aligners or braces or whatever. We actually turn on Copilot and we click on specific segments of Copilot, whether this patient is going into elastics or what our treatment goals are and when we want an action to take effect. So as an example, patient goes into elastics, we pull up Grin, we turn on Elastic Copilot, we actually put in exactly where the patient is supposed to be wearing their elastics. We also turn on Scheduling Copilot, which immediately tells the AI when this patient achieves a class 1, that's when I want my front desk to be notified to call the patient to bring them in for an appointment. This is where the power now begins, because this patient in your practice can actually go on to dynamic scheduling, or what we call on-demand scheduling. Many people have talked about this, but nobody has built out the nuts and bolts of a system like Copilot that will actually do this for your practice. So we don't have to worry that these patients are going to get lost. We don't have to worry that a patient is just never going to make their next appointment, because again, the Grin Care specialists, along with and powered by the Grin Copilot, are actually taking care of this for you. Now, where this all gets up-leveled, even another point, is when we layer on top of this our new unbelievable tool called Treatment Tracker. Let me show you guys a little bit about what that's about.
First, we made the Grin Scope and app, transforming practices with better outcomes and simpler processes. Then we released Grin Premium, evolving practice management with remote care specialists and Grin Augmented Intelligence. Now Grin is revolutionizing orthodontic treatment again with Grin 3D Treatment Tracker, a breakthrough treatment tool that gives doctors at-a-glance insights about their patient's progression, not just by measuring fit, but by actually tracking individual teeth. The Grin 3D Treatment Tracker uses smart computer vision technology to identify individual teeth and tracks their movement across Grin scans, then compares that movement against the actual treatment planned stages. And it works for any digitally planned treatment, with treatment plan files accepted from the biggest manufacturers, with more to come. Grin 3D Treatment Tracker unlocks a whole new level of precision, efficiency, and patient care. It's another way Grin develops smart technology to give you more time doing what matters, giving your patients the attention they each deserve. Find out more at get-grin.com/3DTXtracker.
Awesome. So just to understand what that video just showed you, your patient takes a scan, whether they're in digital braces, in other words, indirect bonding, digital braces, or aligners, and Grin will actually be able to tell you where each tooth is versus where they're supposed to be in treatment. This is not anymore, oh, there's a gap in your aligner, which doesn't really tell you anything. This is real data showing you exactly where the teeth are versus where they're supposed to be. And so this is what Treatment Tracker looks like, where this patient, as an example, is all green across the board in tracking. This is an example of, two lower lateral incisors not quite tracking. Now imagine the things that we can do, the things that we're going to learn by having this kind of data, tooth by tooth, teaching us things we never even knew about how treatment is progressing on a week by week basis. We used to look at treatment plans from, the beginning of treatment to our refinements, or even with braces from one arch wire change to the other. But to have this kind of data, movement by movement, this is really where things are going to start getting very, very powerful. And of course, when this is now showing our Grin Care specialists and co-pilot where teeth are versus where they're supposed to be, this starts automating. Patient takes a scan. If they're not tracking somewhere based on your preferences as a doctor, this patient will either be told to stay in their tray, this patient will be told to make an appointment if that's what you want, this patient will be told to bite on a chewy. Whatever you decide as you are onboarding your Grin Care specialist is exactly what your Grin Care specialist will tell the patient because of the information that they obtained from Treatment Tracker through Copilot. Now, of course, not only are you going to be able to look into granularly patient by patient, but Copilot also will have a control center, which is going to be your main screen, letting you know at every point in time exactly what's happening to your practice. So we talk about the fact that your practice can almost be automated, but personalized and done exactly the way you want it. If you want insight, you shall receive insight. It is all going to be there so that at any given time, you have the power to really truly have the metrics and the data of what's happening in your practice, making sure that your patients are happy, making sure that treatment is progressing the way you wanted it to. Now, I'm just going to tease a little bit when we talk about this patient journey, because I've taken this patient from the first time they've touched your practice throughout treatment into retention now. Imagine now the power of what Treatment Tracker can do for you in retention, where patients go completely virtual, and every time they take a scan, Treatment Tracker will immediately be able to know if teeth are shifting, and then therefore automate, tell the patient, oop, you got to wear your retainers better, or are they too far gone? Is there a world where the patient then clicks in their app and automatically orders a new retainer? This is all small little teases of things to come. So as I mentioned, every patient, every stage, and any kind of treatment. But again, now with the tools that's going to literally hand over the patient from one stage to another. So this is truly the first time when people talk about all of these technologies that a company, Grin, is actually putting all of this together, and I call it holding your patient's hand from one stage of treatment to the other throughout the entire journey. I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Reynolds to give you a little bit of insight on how Grin has really changed his practice.
Thanks, Adam. And now we're going to introduce Dr. Adam Reynolds. Dr. Reynolds has been an absolute delight. Many of you, especially those that have been starting practices in the last couple of years, probably know his name from a lot of the orthodontic forums. Dr. Reynolds has a thriving practice, took his practice from scratch to the thriving place it's at right now, scaling his business in a new modernized way, utilizing Grin as the backbone of his practice. So we wanted to give you guys a glimpse into his practice, how he's utilizing the tools on both his aligner patients, braces patients, phase one, etc. So without further ado, Dr. Adam, thanks so much for jumping on and sharing your wisdom.
Sounds great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, super excited to be here. Grin has definitely been a great portion of my practice and hope to share just a little bit of what we've learned in this process. see if I can figure out the controls here. Alrighty. So the biggest question that we come across is, does technology bring magic and make everything easier? This is a picture of my daughter. All the pictures here are of my kids. And you can see here we've got a scope, and she obviously doesn't know what she's doing with it. And oftentimes as orthodontists, we're trying to integrate technology. And just because we have technology doesn't make my life easier or better for the patients. The integration is really the challenge. So in my startup practice, I started wanting to use remote monitoring from the beginning. And when I did that, I actually had went with a different company that I had started with previously. And very quickly, let's see if I can get to the next slide. Very quickly, I realized that there were some advantages to this remote monitoring. And as doctors, we want things that are predictable. We want things that make sense financially. We want them easy. And then the question becomes, well, what do patients want? Patients want convenience. They want it to be instant. They want communication to be asynchronous when it's convenient for them. They want less visits to the office. And they really want personal touch. They want to talk to a real person. Most of us don't want chatbots. We know when it's AI and when it's not. And we want personalized care to be treated like an individual. So in that process, I actually started thinking and looking into Grin. And the biggest reason initially was cost. So as a practice, we're trying to control our costs. And I looked into Grin thinking, hey, this could be a little bit less expensive. And so we switched pretty early on from where we were to Grin. But what I actually realized in that process was really instructive and kind of surprising. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, it's going backwards. Go forwards. There we go. So pretty quickly, these are actual responses from my patients just in the last week. We're getting people that are responding to our Grin Care specialist. It's very simple, but you can read it on April 7th. Good evening, Julian. You're ready to advance. Please continue to use your Chewies daily. NextGen is set for April 14th. Have a nice evening. And my patients were responding constantly. Thank you, you as well. And you can see that again and again. And this wasn't happening where on the other platform where I was using AI. People knew it was AI. People weren't responding. It wasn't personal. If you kind of take that to the next level, she even gets information from them, right? Thanks for staying in your aligners a little longer. How often have you been able to use your Chewies? The response is I try to use them about 10 minutes a day. And then she gives a response and there's a thanks, you too. So even in my short couple of years of using this, we've already had over almost 50,000 messages back and forth. And most of them are going out from us and back in. It's kind of 50-50. So a Grin Care specialist, let me kind of peel back the hood a little bit. That's somebody that physically reviews every scan and every message 7 days a week from about 7 a.m.-ish to 7 p.m.-ish. That Grin Care specialist is the one that uses the AI tools. And then with their clinical knowledge, they're going to make recommendations, give communication, help us as a team. And they can assign specific messages to the doctor or a team member, depending on how you have it set up. One of the great things for me is one of the challenges of running a practice is managing people. And who manages this Grin Care specialist? It's not me. I didn't hire them. I didn't train them, right? I don't have to manage that. In fact, even my Grin Care specialist, Renee, had to go out for a family emergency. And all I got was an email saying, hey, she's going to be gone for a couple of days, but we've got someone to fill in. And so that was something I didn't have to worry about. As a startup, it's a really great deal because you're getting a full-time employee for pennies when you're just monitoring a few patients that can be added to your practice, 7 days a week. When I calculate that value proposition for us, it's incredible for us. Right now, if I say, okay, half the technology, half the cost for us for Grin is technology and half of it is our Grin Care specialist, we probably pay between $3 to $4 an hour for that. And that personal touch is every week or two for us, which is incredible. So let me kind of peel this back a little bit and what this next level care looks like. We can all imagine what remote monitoring can do for us. And so let's kind of walk through that a little bit and look at these levels of care. So you just got home and little Johnny is now ready to go to bed and wear rubber bands, and Johnny doesn't remember how to wear those rubber bands. So what can you do? Well, in Orthodontic Design Company, you can message us on the app, a little message, and we will just draw that for you and tell you, little Johnny's supposed to be wearing the rubber bands from this hook here to this one here, and we will send this picture right back, and you'll have it on your phone within 24 hours to know exactly how little Johnny should wear his rubber bands. We know there's a lot of things you have to remember. That's one thing we want to take off your plate here at Orthodontic Design Company with our Grin app. Thanks so much. So that's pretty awesome, right? Of course, that saves parents time, but here's the next gen Grin Care. So this just happened to me, I think, last week. I get a notification from Renee, and she says an email on the left side of the screen, is her elastic correct on the left? And so I hadn't reviewed this scan. She's doing it for me. We pull up the scan, take a look, and her elastic she's wearing from a vertical upper left 4 to lower left 5, which is not correct. And so we actually then easily can send her a note back. And so I jump on real quick. I actually tell her, hey, great job with the rubber bands. I love that you have them on your scan. I've drawn on your scan to help you wear them on the correct teeth. Let me know if this helps, right? So now we're actually catching problems before they even become problems. So the question is, why did I initially switch to Grin? Well, because it was a cost proposition. The scopes were less expensive. The service was less expensive. But to be honest, the reason why I stay is because we're gaining a highly trained employee or a team of employees. We're giving more excellent care. It's delivered in a better way to patients. It's asynchronous, it's instant. We're catching problems before anyone realizes it's a problem, and it's really highly professional communication. It's always on. I don't have to worry about whether my Grin care specialist is present or not. And they're really good at understanding orthodontics and bringing the doctor and team in when it's needed or when it's necessary. So it is saving us time and the patient time. So the question becomes like, do I review scans? I don't unless I want to. I really do trust Renee. She's been fantastic, and she reviews every scan, and then she can pick out things and let us know when it might be something to look at. And so we can even set up parameters for her and say, hey, Renee, will you just let us know when we can engage this canine, right? And you can kind of see that we didn't engage it in the lateral or the fore. And then when she lets us know, we can engage it in those teeth, and we can even do the next step as well. So we don't review, and I don't review any scan that I don't want to, because she's incredible and she does it for us. But then she takes that level, that care to the next level. This is that same patient. She's noticing, hey, braces are looking great, but when brushing, please sure to get between the gum line and the brackets. I'm sending a photo of the areas we're noticing. Have a fantastic week. And she sends a picture of those spots. And then you can see, actually, mom happens to be on this. Sometimes kids and parents are both signed in. And she says, thanks for bringing it to our attention. I've let the patient know and showed her the pictures. So this is fantastic. Renee is helping us with oral hygiene every week. And then this becomes incredible care too. So this is that same patient a couple months later. And as that canine's coming down, mom actually texts us and says, also, we're wondering if the correction of her teeth being even when she closes her mouth is going to happen. It looks almost like her jaw is rotated or something. So within a few minutes, Renee jumps on and she's responding. The elastics are closing her bite. Ideally, the top teeth will go over her lower teeth just slightly. Her natural bite is not supposed to be edge to edge. Her teeth are still aligning. You can't pay much attention to it right now. Everything is looking great and exactly as it should be. Please be patient. It's a process. Let us know if you have any questions. So again, this is 0 minutes of my time. If you're a parent or a mom and this is happening, this is incredible care. This doesn't happen in any other doctor's office. And we know this is a journey for our patients. But let's actually take this another level. When you realize that this on March 4th was actually on a Sunday, where is that going to happen? And for me, I'm at church, right? But then I see these messages kind of pop across. And so it's easier for me after church when I'm waiting at the top, someone for me to jump on and say, in short, yes, what you're asking is that we will close the bite and make it even. And so mom responds, thank you for explaining that. I kept trying to tell her it's a process, but teenagers are just something. That level of care is incredible. And it's really, really nice because sometimes even in a startup, we're thinking, well, we've got time, right? Just spend time with the patients when they're in the office and make connections, and that's what's important. As a father of 5 kids, this is the kind of connection I want, right? That's convenient to me, not necessarily the way that's convenient to an orthodontist. So how do we communicate with our Grin care specialist? This is kind of an example. It's my own son, but we'll kind of go through this and just give an idea of it's very, I know that Adam Schloff shared some of the tools that are coming, but it's very easy even right now. Over how we manage communication between us and our remote care specialists. It's really, really simple. There's a couple of easy ways to pin notes to a patient's chart. So you'll see right here, we've got 2 pin notes. One of them we always pin is kind of what our overall treatment plan is. And then we've got a second note here that says Dr. Adam Reynolds' son right here that just started some aligners. And we can even, as we make those notes, we can even assign them to someone. So if I want to assign that to our team members so that as we write that note in, it'll pop up and she will see it. And then we can pin that note so that every time she's seeing a scan, she will see that note. And it could be something such as when they get to a certain stage, let us know so that we can schedule them, or they've got IPR at this stage, or even let us know when midlines line up in rubber band wear, or when you think they're at class 1. The class 1 sometimes depends on how good the patient is at scanning side to side. but Renee will still view those scans. She'll give you a notification. You can review the scan and see what you think. So it's a very simple open-ended situation where there's a patient brief or notes where we can tag them, and super easy. Love it. So just for me in my situation, an average clinical day for me using custom Kalo braces and Grin, I'm seeing about 17 clinical appointments in about 1.5 chairs, and we do about 5 virtual appointments a day. They're all asynchronous. So what is a virtual appointment? That's not for us like we're checking in on braces or we're checking aligners. Those are check-ins maybe for aligners once every 3.5 months, or maybe for phase 1, we're doing virtual appointments. So let me just show you what one of those appointments, oops, I went too far forward. One of those appointments might look like for us that we just did recently. I just wanted to go over your scan. Hey, Morgan, things are going really well so far. So one of the things you'll see, and let me kind of show you, is we've got this tooth coming in as we're making space, which is good. This tooth is probably loose, if not already out. And then this one came out recently. So as we're getting space, we're starting to get loose teeth, which is exactly what we want. And brushing looks pretty good. No concerns on the outside. That looks fantastic. This tooth will have a different color just because it's becoming hollow as it's being melted away underneath. That looks good from that side. Your upper is a little bit ahead of your lower. I know you got a little bit of food stuck in there. No worry, just make sure when you brush, you try and get down there. This is how much expansion you've got already on the bottom. So these 3 silver pieces used to be right next to each other and flush. So from now on, I want you to slow down the lower a little bit and turn 2 times per week on the bottom. And then let's take a look at the top. On the top, this looks great. This is the amount of expansion you've gotten on top because you didn't used to see any threads there. On the top, I want you to do 10 more turns on top. So 1 turn a day for the next 10 days and then stop. And then continue turning on the lower 2 times a week, and we'll check in a couple months and make sure things are going well. Sorry for the sound. Maybe that was my heartbeat or something, but those virtual appointments are awesome. Most of our phase 1s are virtual appointments. So then the question for us is, recently I was going to be on a podcast talking a bit about our experience with Grin and growing with the Grin app. And my question to myself was, Grin seems to be great for us, but is it really working for the patients? So we just sent out a mass message on Grin and said, hey, we've used this technology. What are your thoughts or your experience so far? Within a couple hours, we had 30 responses. And I just want to kind of highlight a couple of those. So we talked about what patients want. They want to talk to a real person. So here's what some of these parents said of patients. The key to what makes Grin work so well, in my opinion, is the active involvement your team has. Someone is available on a daily basis, and that is irreplaceable. Another parent says, the app wouldn't even be worth it if you and your staff weren't already amazing. So thank you. And guys, this is the secret sauce of this, right? Is Renee, our remote care or Grin care specialist, is the driving force behind this, right? It's personal touch. It's a real person. It's talking to a real person. It's 7 days a week. What do patients think? Does it save them time? It does. So this parent says, I live 45 minutes away from the office, so the ability to do virtual check-in versus having to drive in frequently is a huge time saver and keeps me from missing school and work. I mean, we all understand that, but for patients to be able to picking that out on their own is awesome. And then this is the one that I feel like doctors talk about a lot, right? I don't want to have maybe my patients not come in because we don't have a relationship. I want to be able to connect with my patients. Like for our aligner patients, we don't see them in the office except for when we need to do a refinement scan or deliver aligners. Here's an aligner patient of ours who actually decided to sell their RV during the middle of treatment and then travel the country. It's incredible what she said. She said, using Grin has also created a more warm and personable space for communication and connection. I don't feel like a number. I feel like a part of a team that's taking care of my orthodontic care. So in my experience so far, using Grin with our Grin care specialists and the way we use it, our patients are getting a really highly personalized care that's a lot of personal touch. And then one of our patients even talked about Renee. She says the quick communication turnaround is incredible and the convenience is unmatched. Plus Renee is truly the best. So helpful, kind, and always on top of everything. That has been such a positive experience. I'm so grateful for the experience. So it's just been an awesome experience. I'm going to skip this slide. This is about a patient who used Grin while her daughter was in the hospital, and we were able to go take out some expanders for MRI. Lessons learned from me. Going all in from scratch, it's trained my patients and my team to fully use the technology we offer. And that's been huge for us because a lot of times it's easy to integrate a technology, but not really fully integrate it and fully use it. I would never go back to another company or get rid of Grin at this point. For me, Grin's been the single biggest differentiator of my practice, not because it's a technology, but because of the high level of care we're giving to our patients that's so personal and convenient for them. And then the other lesson learned is treat companies like partners. Give them good feedback and work together. So like any company that's a partner, it's not a light switch, but sometimes we might call Renee on the phone every couple months and just talk to her and work things out together and make sure we're on the same page. All right, turn it back over to you, Kurt and Maren.
Thank you, Adam. Great insights. And folks, what you heard from Dr. Reynolds, he's creating a world-class personalized experience by leveraging the system with his Grin Care Coordinator, providing that concierge service that bridges the gap between in-person visits and in patients' homes. And as you can see, the Grin Care Specialist, with the help of the technology they interpret, ensures seamless communication through all steps on your behalf. If you look at this graphic, it's busy. Especially to somebody, former teacher like myself. I know you're not going to read that, but these are the protocols that we have set up for our Grin Care Specialists in order to take charge and work with your practice. So as you onboard to Grin, we're going to have a discovery call with you, interview you, and whoever your Grin specialist is in your practice, and communicate back and forth to figure out how best to serve your patients, to interpret that data for our Grin Care Specialists and their team to communicate to your patients on your behalf. So with that said, I really am excited to introduce one of our celebrities here at Grin, who runs the Grin Care Specialist team, Maren Broadhurst. So Maren, we've got a lot of questions because if I'm sitting here as an orthodontist and have been practicing for years, I'm pretty curious about the ability for your team to utilize the doctor's instructions, interpret the Grin technology, and then coach the patient while holding them accountable while you coach and get them excited about orthodontic treatment. So I have a couple questions, Maren. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Let's go.
All right. So tell me a little bit about the team, the role of the Grin Care Specialist, your roles and responsibility. What's that all about?
Well, we have an amazing team, of course. All of us have over a decade of experience in the orthodontic field. We've all been clinical assistants. We've been treatment coordinators, clinical coordinators, directors. And a lot of us have even worked up front. So we've got a wealth of knowledge to help the patients because we've been through that process.
You must. And from seeing the interactions, and Dr. Adam Reynolds showed us some examples. I know you guys love your jobs. You're passionate about the patients and helping the practices. So tell me, some of the aspects of the tremendous coaching you guys perform is amazing. But tell me some of the other aspects of your role in communicating with patients and offices.
Well, the great part is that, each practice has their own specific main care coordinator that they reach out to, but we all work as a team. So they get that individualization with each one of us. But then if we have some questions, we reach out to each other. We work really well that way. You have us 7 days a week, like Dr. Reynolds was saying, and we're here morning, noon, and night. Of course, we have our little group. So if we do need to take days off, we're here to support each other. But we're on call all the time, and we treat these patients just like we would if we were working directly in your practice. I mean, we become friends and they become kind of our family members. We've all been through treatment ourselves, our family members, our kids, our grandkids. So we know how important it is to, reach out to them in a promptly manner and educate them and help them understand, like, why do I have to wear this aligner longer? Why am I wearing the rubber bands? Like Dr. Reynolds said, why are we wearing it in this position? We're here to help coach them and guide them to get the best treatment possible.
Yeah, and the best analogy a doctor gave to me was having you guys was the equivalent of hiring a personal trainer to get in shape because you have a coach, you have somebody that holds you accountable. So in a natural setting, an orthodontic practice over a couple years of treatment, you make, 24, 25 visits to your orthodontist. But scanning every patient, that patient actually has an increased touch, massive uh, impacts of communication with you guys while you coach them. We're talking 60 to 70 scans in the course of that same treatment. So That's why I think we don't have as many compliance problems as these do-it-yourself systems that are in the market today. But last thing, if there's some providers on this call right now who use Grin, who are using our old subscriptions that didn't include a Grin Care Specialist, talk to them, and then also talk to the new providers. Like, what do you wish people knew about your role that they're currently not aware of?
Well, I think if you're using Grin, you understand the personal, touch and the connection there. We provide the empathy and the education. But, just like Dr. Reynolds was talking about the elastics, if you're not remotely monitoring your patients and you're going 6 to 10 to 12 weeks out, you don't know if that patient is going home and placing their elastics in the proper position, or what if this patient is wearing their aligners, they think it looks good to them, so they're going to skip a few days because they think that moving through these aligners is going to get them ahead at the end of the day, or even something big like a MARPE or an expander. We're here to guide them, week by week or even day by day if, hygiene's poor. So I think having us as a coach and their cheerleader along the way really helps.
That's great. So in summary, just for everyone, the Grin Care Specialists are interpreting the doctor's custom prescription for that patient, interpreting that, and then coaching and holding the patient accountable for your prescription and how they would like to be treated. So it's no wonder our patient engagement shoots through the roof when people start using it. So thanks to you and your team. I know on behalf of all the doctors that use you guys, they definitely find it beneficial. So thanks, Maren.
Thank you.
Great. And next up, I would like to introduce Dr. Jeremy Manueli. Dr. Manueli, known as Dr. J, is a Las Vegas native orthodontist practicing in Las Vegas, Nevada. Highly respected and requested speaker and educator that's pushing boundaries. He's a true trailblazer like Dr. Adam Reynolds in our orthodontic community that lectures on many technologies. He's taken his established practice to the next level with Grin, and I know probably half the people in this call are in the same predicament. So I think his message is going to relate while he navigates the technology he uses with the backbone of it being Grin to take his practice to the next level. So let's hear from Dr. Jeremy.
I want to walk you through why I chose Grin. And I can't go through everything today with you, but what I want to go through is the peace of mind side of things and also the increased efficiency, less appointment side of things. So we're going to focus on that primarily today. To accomplish most when I started with Grin is I wanted to be able to optimize my schedule so that I could then transition from a 2-doctor practice to a 1-doctor practice as my business partner retired without having to bring on another doctor. So when I joined this practice in 2014, Dr. Hamilton was primarily doing braces, nothing digital, 1 doctor, 3 assistants, 60 to 70 appointments per day, and this is what our schedule looked like. Fast forward to 2023, we had implemented a lot of new technologies, but we hadn't implemented remote monitoring yet. We still had been working on our efficiencies. So we implemented about 25% aligners, 100% digital indirect bonding, and then we switched to ULab for our aligners. And we also implemented a lot of more complex treatments that otherwise we weren't offering before. Our production was close to double, and at that point we were 2 doctors, 4 assistants, and we would see 50 to 60 patients per day. We also transitioned, and I was seeing patients 12 days a month, and he was seeing patients on average 8 days a month. And the days that we saw patients together were those 8 days that he worked. In 2024 is when we implemented Grin and remote monitoring into our practice. And when we did that with the intention of freeing up time, not only to review Grin scans, which out of all the things I do digitally, that takes the least amount of my time, but to also give me time to be able to work through all of my aligner workflows and also my digital indirect bonding workflows with the systems that I was using. And so we implemented what we call a start new patient day. So 2 of the 3 days a week that we see patients are full days, 50 to 60 patients. And that 3rd day, we schedule primarily starts and new patients. Because our starts are primarily delegated, because everything is set up in advance, and the new patients are primarily delegated to the TCs, that frees up a lot of my time to be able to do the digital workflow required and to do other things that I enjoy doing, which we'll go over a little bit more later. So my practice is broken up this way. We have 39% kids, 43% teens, 18% adults. This is our breakdown on the aligners. Most of our kids get expanders and or partial braces, primarily just expanders. And if you do the math, we're about 25% aligners, 76% braces. And these are the treatment numbers that we were able to obtain in 2024. Now, I'm really excited to share with you updated treatment numbers once we get a little bit further into 2025, because take into consideration that most of these aligner patients that you're seeing here at the bottom actually weren't on Grin for the vast majority of their treatment, although some of the finished cases in 2024 helped with our averages. So you can see here that when we are utilizing remote monitoring, especially in the aligner patients, it's going to reduce the amount of appointments required tremendously. I've been inspired tonight by Adam to see some of the things that he's doing with it, and I want to take that back to my own practice and be able to optimize my braces appointments as well. Because up to this point, we haven't actually done that where we're doing those on-demand appointments, but I definitely think that's the way that it's going. So I want to share with you one unique way we just started using remote monitoring. So we're combining this with direct print aligners. And I know there's been a lot of hype and buzz about what direct print aligners are. Have they really arrived? Is it really the future? Are they going to come and go? I think this is where it's going. And when you combine that with the Grin treatment tracker, to me, it provides not only a game-changing experience for the patient, but really a game-changing experience for your practice and the ability to be able to treat patients remotely, unlike anything that we've ever seen. So I want to walk you through from start to finish a case that we did and we treated completely this way. So this is one of my lab technicians. This is her sister, and she wanted to be treated, but she didn't live in our area. And so this is where we started here. And I want you to just glance at this case and look and say, if you were treating this case with aligners, how would you do it? How would you set it up? Where would you put the attachments? What would that look like? And keep in mind, we have a significant amount of intrusion that we're going to be aiming to achieve as we are correcting the crowding there in order to not have to do as much IPR in our setup. So this was 4 months later, and I want to show you how we got there. And I'm going to go through the entire setup so you can understand every part of that process. But for me, this unlocks the potential of what is possible. With the traditional aligner workflow, you guys are all familiar with this. I'm not going to go over this in detail right now, but basically you scan the teeth, you order aligners. They move the teeth, you scan the teeth again, you order more aligners. The workflow and the problem with that is that you get stuck in this refinement phase in 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 refinements. It can become very, very taxing on your time and very, very taxing on the patient's time, constantly waiting for new aligners. So the workflow that we use in our practice now is something we call a chairside and now virtual refinement fast track protocol. And what happens is, rather than scanning the patient over and over and over again to refine, we are going to get a glimpse of where the patient's teeth are based on the Grin treatment tracker, if they're remote, or see them in the office if they're not. And then we're going to make adjustments on the fly, eliminating the patient having to continue to wait for aligners and eliminating my need to do another refinement workup. We're going to do those chairside or virtually. So when you compare the amount of doctor time required with one model versus the other, you can see all of these touch points go away. And when you compare the amount of times that the patient has to wait for their aligners, those touch points go away. So when they start their aligners, they work straight through from start to finish. If you want to go into more of that in more detail, I do have some videos on that posted on my YouTube channel. If you search the chairside refinements, you will find that. I'll also be speaking about that on Saturday afternoon at the AAO if you're going to be there in Philly. So this is that case that I showed you. And here's the actual workup that we did. You can see we had 15 aligners on the top and 15 on the bottom to start. Now, I know you're seeing 18 aligners there, and I'll explain why there is 18 in just a couple minutes here. But there was nothing groundbreaking or magical about this setup. One of the only things that may be a little bit different than from what I would do with my initial setups is typically for a case like this, I would be adding attachments, especially on the lower canines and premolars to help support the intrusion that I know I'm going to need with this case. So our initial setup was 15 aligners. We went ahead and had those aligners direct printed, and we got them sent to the patient. Keep in mind, one of the things I was focusing on with this case in particular is I wanted to make sure that we had enough overjet. And you can see here when we set up these cases, we're actually going to set up excess overjet in order to avoid running out of overjet as we're aligning those teeth and or avoid any anterior interferences. So that was the level of overjet we programmed in here. This was before I had a printer in my office, so we went ahead and sent this out to the company to have those printed. And I just want to walk you through a few of these stages. We can see every step of the way what's happening. And if you're not familiar with these printed aligners, what happens with them is when you put them in boiling water, they actually restore to their initial shape. So the thought is that as you're wearing any type of aligner, there's some distortion that the teeth cause on the aligner. That's why the force levels go down. So the teeth move to some extent, but the aligner bends, for lack of a description, with the other extent of the movement. And so with these direct printed aligners, you can put them in boiling water and restore the original forces. And we'll see, does that actually make a difference? Well, it seemed to in this case. As we go along, we can see, the tracking is pretty good. Patients very compliant, wearing them well, boiling them to restore the forces. Again, no attachments. We're going to go to aligner 5 here. But the other cool thing is that all the while I am just kind of like observing and saying, hey, this is kind of a cool thing, Marin is on there motivating the patient, encouraging them. And if there's ever something that I need to be involved in, she'll just loop me into the equation. So if I don't need to be involved, great. I see patients 35 weeks later sometimes, and they come into the office. I'm like, great job, Marin. They look awesome. Thank you for helping them track so well. And other patients, if there's a question, she'll loop me into it. So here you can see a little part of that lower mandibular right canine there, not tracking so well. So we went ahead and instructed the patient, use the Chewies on the lateral incisor, not the canine, because it's the lateral incisor that needs to be intruded, not the canine. And we knew that because the treatment tracker showed us that was the tooth that was the furthest off as it related to our original plan. So we gave her those instructions. She went ahead and continued to wear them. Again, if there's anything else that needs to happen, Marin's constantly on the spot, helping that patient through, coaching that patient through. And then we get to the point where we're going to do our remote virtual refinement. And so we have that all programmed in at the beginning. This is where her teeth were at that aligner 15. So, if you're just looking at the aligners on the teeth, okay, I mean, they look okay. But when we take the aligners off the teeth, well, you can see some things that you didn't see before. But the really cool thing is when you can see things that you wouldn't be able to see with the aligners in or out or at all in a video. And that's where the Grin treatment tracker really, really shines. So what you're seeing here on the left side of your screen is basically an STL file. It's a 3D model file that is created that you can visualize, that you can manipulate, that you can move at whatever stage the patient's teeth are at, and that's taken from their photos. It's also nice that they overlay the photos underneath so that you can have a good reference. And if you click on a different image, you'll see the corresponding photo that goes with it. So now I have the information, what teeth have not tracked completely, and what do they actually look like in her mouth. Well, with that information, all I need to do is make the adjustments in my software to continue the movement of the teeth, and I can continue to correct this case remotely. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. This view is the actual planned movement. So this is essentially like the aligner that was planned, like an STL file of the aligner stage. And so with this, what you can do is you can overlay that initial image I showed you with the patient's teeth created from that digital file from the pictures, and then overlay that with the actual STL file of that stage. And that shows you exactly where the offsets are from a labiolingual standpoint, from an incisal-gingival standpoint, so that you can really, really determine what movements still need to happen and what movements still need to play out. So this is what that last scan looked like at 15. And one of the things I wanted to do was extrude that lateral incisor. And I don't know about you guys, but that is a difficult movement for me to do with any type of aligner systems. A lot of times I'll tip it facially and then extrude it at the same time so we have something to push on. But I was kind of curious, if we did this refinement, could we just push it straight down? And so this was our remote refinement. You can see here, this stage 15 is not a new STL file of the teeth. It's the original stage 15 that we had. But now we have the information that we need in order to know what further movements we need. So you can see here, we're going to have a little bit more intrusion, a little bit more mesiofacial on the mandibular right lateral incisor. The left lateral incisor needs to extrude a little bit. And then we look at our upper movements. And you can see all I did was move that lateral incisor pretty much straight down. I was not super optimistic that that movement was going to happen, but I figured I would give it a shot. But when we look at how the teeth tracked, you can see from aligner 15 to aligner 18, the teeth continued to move and that gap started to close. And so this is the actual scans. You can see here how they're fitting aligner 16, aligner 17, and aligner 18 here. And then at aligner 18, looking at the teeth, looking at the treatment tracker, talking to the patient, any concerns that you have, she was pretty happy. So how did we actually do? We did have this patient in afterwards, and I did update the STL files, and I want to show with you what the actual treatment looked like in a very detailed way. So this was our final setup stage at the remote refinement at stage 18. You can see the overcorrections in there on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side was the actual STL file that we took of the patient's teeth after they had gone through number 18 and they were back in our office. All right, so this is the final setup stage of number 18 on the left. And then again, our current intraoral scan, you can see that that didn't level out completely, right? I mean, now that we have that scan and we can see it 100% close up, you see, okay, maybe we needed a little bit more intrusion of those lower incisors, right? There was our before and there was the current, you can see there. So we did accomplish a lot of intrusion, not as much as we had planned. And then also you can see here the initial setup, and you can see on that maxillary left lateral incisor, maybe it needs a little bit more mesiofacial movement. So can we see every exact detail? Maybe not, but we can see so much that at this point, these corrections are so minor, we can turn them around and finish them in what we would call post-debond aligners. But I have to come up with a new name now because we never bonded attachments to begin with. So I guess it's just post your initial set of aligners. So let's look here. This is why I think that we had some residual rotation of that mandibular right canine. You can see here that that's mesiolingual, which if you were looking at the initial images is actually overcorrected. But I think we ran out of space in overjet, probably didn't do enough IPR as we had planned, and we had a little bit of an interference on that incisor there. So once she came in, we went ahead and designed 4 more aligners, and these are the ones that she'll be wearing over the next couple of months. We created a little bit of extra overjet there, and we continued the leveling on the lower arch, and she's going to continue to wear and work through these aligners. You can see I've also overcorrected the leveling, pushing that mandibular left central incisor down a little bit further than the other ones. So again, our 4-month photos, that's why I called them almost final, right? We're almost there. We're getting really, really close. But definitely a transformation that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to obtain had we not, without at least seeing the patient a few times, without that technology available to us. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is the peace of mind that Grin brings me. You are going to save a ton of your time by implementing this into your practice. And so I would definitely come up with a game plan on what you want to do with that time. For me, I just somehow tend to gravitate toward treating sometimes overly complex orthodontic cases. And so having the peace of mind to know that I can do that in a way that's not constantly stressing me out is very helpful for me. So this was a patient that wanted a broader smile. And initially, when we were going through the MARPE process, Marin and I are looking at these scans together. So I like to monitor weekly my expansion patients. I'm taking a look at every single scan for about the first 2 months while they are in that active expansion process, because I want to make sure that it goes seamless as possible and that there's no surprises when I see them in the office. And so here you can see here, Marin's monitoring, I'm monitoring, we're going through, we're continuing to do the turns. Once we get to the point where the turns are done, this expansion is good, then we're going to go ahead and Marin's going to take the lead and continue to monitor the progress as they continue to wear through their aligners, all the while making these relationships that otherwise you would not have had the opportunity to do. You essentially have every single week or every other week, depending on your scan frequency, the ability to make relationships with patients, and they're going to do that better than you probably would anyway. So here was our 5-month progress scan. You can see that the MARPE is out now. We still have some work to do with the aligners. We fast forward. Again, she's continuing to be monitored. We added an auxiliary to help upright those roots there. And our initial to our 10-month progress, the width of the smile's looking good. Patient's really happy. And, it's a peace of mind for me. I don't have to worry about, did the expansion happen correctly? Was everything going on track? I didn't have to constantly get these patients in. Like I was seeing them every 2 weeks to make sure that they were okay in the office before I implemented Grin. And when we look at the images on a 3D superposition, you can see we got the changes that we were looking to obtain and things were progressing in the right direction. I know that MARPE and skeletal expansion is not everybody's cup of tea, but if it is something that you are interested in, I do have an online course dedicated specifically to learning and mastering MARPE, and the information can be found at marpe360.com if you are interested. So our structure with Grin, we have the Grin coordinator, Marin, we have myself, and we have one in-office team member who's going to help coordinate between the 3 of us. So you want to invest time with your Grin coordinator. You want to make sure that she understands your system and preferences. Do that in the beginning. The more information you give them, the better able they are going to be able to monitor your patients moving forward. And then give them access to the treatment plan, whether it's a copy and paste. They are super smart. They can read between the lines. They can figure out what's going on with the case if you give them access to your goals and your treatment plan. And then just sit back and let them do their thing. It is amazing. My in-office team member, she's mostly focused on scheduling and efficiencies. So are there patients that we don't need to see? Maybe we scheduled them, but they're on track, or maybe they're ahead of track. Can we see patients earlier? And this is probably in my practice, the area of most continued growth that we can still work at. Although we have done a pretty good job of eliminating many in-office appointments just with basically turning play on the Grin platform. The potential is even higher than we're using it. She's also going to coordinate all of the office needs. So anything that a patient has or needs that requires the office get involved, she's going to be the one person that knows that and coordinates that within the office. My job, obviously, I'm going to be training them both on my preferences. I'll let them know, hey, text is best, email is best, Grin notification. There's lots of ways they can notify you when something is needed from you. And then I time block 15 minutes a week to go through my scans. Again, the majority of which being MARPI or TAD.
So these folks, these are our leaders of the R&D team, the product team that are innovating these new technologies for you. And we want to give you share a little bit of what's a peek behind the curtain of what's coming around the corner. So I've asked Dr. Adam again to come back on and share some of those great features that'll be available soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kurt. And yeah, these guys and gals on our innovation team are just unbelievable. Every time I have any thought that pops into my head, they're the ones that go and make it happen. So we talked a little bit about Grin Copilot. Look, this is finally AI done right for your practice. Think of it as your AI assistant that's really linking and connecting all of the different pieces of the pie that we've been talking about today. We're also building out a full patient engagement app. So the patients have an app today, but to be able to even better engage within that app with new experiences where they get information that they've never had before, unbelievable things to come on that end of it. Within the platform itself, we're improving the design, the navigation, we're creating unbelievable notification center, and as I mentioned, the control panel. We already have ways to chat internally. Now it's going to be not just chatting with the patient, chatting with your Grin care specialist, but also inter-practice chat. So the ability to even talk amongst yourselves in order to accomplish the efficiencies that you need to within your practice as well. We've got lots of layers of hygiene here. I know a lot, we're orthodontists, yes, but we all hate that conversation at the end about white spot lesions, etc. Now it is tracked. Your Grin care specialists are tracking it. We've got automated AI tracking it so that if and when patients are really not doing what they need to do, moms are very well aware. It's all in the app. It's all documented, videos, scoring, etc. With the click of a button, you can send it to their GPs and tell their GPs, hey, this patient really needs a cleaning appointment with you, etc. So lots of unbelievable tools on that end there. And then, of course, full practice dashboards so that we can measure our hygiene and if our hygiene program has been working across the platform as a whole. AI Smile Simulator. And I talked about Grin not just giving your practice efficiencies and therefore reducing overhead, but also on the front end, or what we call top line, making you more money, bringing new patients to the door through all of our virtual type consultations, our rapid referral that I showed you. And now imagine that patients that come to your platform virtually can even see what their smile is going to look like. So just a couple of peeks under the curtain, of course, AI measurements as well, so that we can actually get data on what's going on in the patient's mouth to the likes of which we've never seen before. So like I said, a couple of behind the curtains, under the kimono looks so that you can see and start imagining a world when you implement Grin within your practice. Again, thank you guys for sticking with us, but I'm going to turn it back over to Kurt for closing remarks. And anybody that wants to stay on, we do have another 15 minutes at least for Q&A if you have any questions for myself, for Dr. Reynolds, for Dr. Manueli, or for the team.
Great, thanks guys. And before we go here, there's a lot of people asking, how do I get started with Grin, or how do I get a Grin care specialist that are current Grin providers? If you will, we're a technology company, so we have some QR codes there. On the left, you could sign up to become a Grin provider, and we'll reach back out to you with some special promotional prices and things to get going. And then on the right, if you want to make an appointment and speak with a Grin care specialist, please sign up there. We do have some really incredible packages to get you guys started. Keep in mind, I came over here for the direction of Dr. Adam Schulhoff, who understands your businesses and your practices better than any company out there. They've been listening, and it was attractive to me. So to get you guys started, we created a nice little 3 to 6 months trial. So feel free, if you want to become a provider, click on the QR code and we'll reach out to you. We have packages that start as little as $8 a month per patient to get going. So the value is incredible based on the time savings, increased communication you'll have with your patients, and you'll give them that Ritz-Carlton world-class patient experience. So having said that, feel free, like Dr. Adams said, we can do some Q&A. Everybody is muted right now, but if you put your questions in the screen, I can ask the panelists for you on your behalf. I know a couple have come in privately already. How do I get a Grin Care Specialist? If you sign up for the, I can answer that one. If you sign up as a Grin provider, that's what we offer today. Our packages start with the Grin Care Specialist provider, so those are standard. So feel free to reach out, schedule an appointment with us so we know who you are. You can get signed up there. The next question, Dr. Greenberg asks, Dr. Jeremy, what kind of printer were you using? 3D printer.
Yeah, sure. So that is the Lux Creo printer and their DCA direct clear aligner resin. There's not a lot of printers on the market right now. I did a lot of research before selecting that one. But yeah, and I don't have any financial affiliation with them, just so you know. But that's the Lux Creo printer and the DCA direct clear aligner resin that you saw.
Great, thank you. Another question came in. This probably best for you, Dr. Scholoff. In the video, it mentioned several companies that we're working with the 3D treatment tracker, but their company wasn't listed.
So look, we are absolutely open to working with any company out there. Some companies are a little bit, more closed-minded, but my goal is, like I said, to always be able to layer this technology at every level of your practice with being completely agnostic to every company out there and everything that you guys use. Ultimately, our technology is driven by obtaining that STL. So any company that's willing to get either you as a doctor the STL or us directly the STL, we are absolutely open to be working with. We've got doctors that do a lot of in-house printing that are shipping us the STLs on their own. We've got companies that we automate the STLs so that you guys don't have to do it. But whatever company you're working with, absolutely let us know, but also let them know, because we are more than happy to create easy integrations for you guys so that this happens almost immediately.
Great. Another question. I can answer this, or Dr. Scholoff, is probably up your alley too, is what's the onboarding experience like with Marin's team?
Oh my goodness. So, the way I'm on a webinar. I shouldn't say this, but the downside is always shit in, shit out, right? You've always heard that, right? Let's put it this way. If you take just a little bit of time, a short call with Marin, then she will, and her team, then they will know exactly the way you like to practice. Like, I have some doctors that never want a patient to use a Chewy. We have other doctors that love for patients to use Chewies, right? I have certain protocols. If something isn't tracking what I want that patient to do, other doctors have others. So it's really just about a little bit of information that will go so far. Same way when you're bringing on board any new assistant chairside, you have them kind of for their first couple of days see how you practice, see what you do in certain situations. That's exactly what we will do with Marin and her team, where they're going to get on a call with you. They're going to understand how you like things. Now, you can be totally hands-off from that point if you like. Personally, I just then followed my patients for the next week and kind of peeked, behind the curtain to see how our Grin Care Specialist is Renee, how Renee was talking to patients. I was blown away, excited and happy, and then I stopped looking. So, to each your own level of how involved you do or do not want to be. But that first onboarding, the more information you can give Marin, the better of a job that her team is going to do for you.
Can I piggyback on that just a little bit?
Sure.
That was one of the big things and the big reasons why I chose Grin initially. That was another decision that I wrestled with that probably for almost a year before deciding to go with Grin. And ultimately, a big part of the decision was I can just start it and we can get it going, and I don't really have to know what I'm doing yet. And truthfully, like I should have, probably known a lot more, put a lot more thought into it, but we just pressed play, let her do her thing, and then we kind of learned as we went. We really didn't change our systems and structure and appointments. That all came later after we had a better working and understanding of the product. I mean, now you guys have so many resources, A, to learn, and B, the protocols are probably even better for onboarding. Definitely, I'm not saying don't invest the time, but that was a big portion of what helped me out in the beginning is like, okay, we don't really know about this. We've never remote monitored before. Let's just press play, kind of watch what they're doing, and we'll learn. And we did. And once we figured out what the capabilities were and how we could move those back into our practice, then we became more intentional about utilizing the technology to more of its potential, which again, we're still in that process of doing.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. That is very, very true. I love that. Thanks.
Another question I might be able to take on for everyone is talk about the other parts to the Grin platform. I think that question is centered around acquiring new patients. First, I would say this creates the world-class experience. Orthodontists and advising them from a business perspective is always think about that 5-10 seconds when mom and mom are talking at the soccer match. You just want them to say, you got to go use Dr. Jeremy Emanuele or Dr. Adam Reynolds. They'll take care of you. A lot of that is a result of the experience you give them. To the new patients that you want to bring in from outside your practice, we offer a virtual consultation program, which is a remote consultation program, which is part of the Grin platform, where you can actually, we give you a URL and you can put it on your app or your website, be able to have patients click on it, and then we'll actually send a Grin scope to that patient with a QR code for them to download the app and send the records to your practice. So you'll have them tied into your practice from the get-go. Some orthodontists are actually using that for the patients that are already signed up and coming in to ensure, especially if they have long wait times, to keep those patients engaged with their practice. Secondly, one of the things I geek out about is the interdisciplinary work you can use with an agile platform like this. Those general practitioners, folks that you would hope would look at orthodontics and refer more out to you, being able to engage with them, the scans that you saw on our platform, you can share those with the general practitioners anytime you want. Say, Dr. Smilemore, here's an updated scan after 6 months. Thank you for sending Sally over to me. She's doing great. Heads up. The hygiene's getting a little iffy in the posterior. That creates an incredible engagement, and obviously with your general practitioner community. And you can share any of the scans before and afters and have patients post them out. So when you invest in Grin, you're investing in not only new patients coming into your practice, but a world-class experience. And community-wise, you can really create more engagement and awareness of you and take it to the next level. Anything there to add, Adam?
No, I think you that was perfect. I see it myself in our practices. We have hygienists in the local community talking about never before being able to see something like a Grin scan. And in some practices, you have hygienists that are part of that practice for years. Will actually just send these patient scans to their hygienist, not even to the dentist, because the hygienists are the ones that ultimately are going to make those patients appointments for them, and also talk to all of their other patients about, I have this one ortho practice that does this amazing thing, that really cares about patient hygiene, that's really taking care of the patients. So yeah, great opportunities there. I will say one other thing on the part of what we're now calling rapid referrals, stocking some GP offices with scopes. There are practices that will even compensate an assistant within a GP practice for taking those scans. And of course, you've got to work with your GPs, but in today's day and age, where you have things like Evenly and Two Front and all of these companies that are trying to essentially take orthodontics and put them in your GP practices, we could be that orthodontist for our GP practice to some extent. So lots of different opportunities for those that are entrepreneurial and really want to be able to capture the market around them.
Awesome. Another question, does Grin provide scripting for TCs? And do you ask for new starts if they prefer not to use Grin, or do you ask all new patients to use it and let them drop out if it's not a thing? Over to
Yeah, I can
one of
just
the
say,
doctors.
Yeah, obviously I've been using it for years and years and years, and for many of you know, I am not as clinical as I used to be. My practices are associate driven. I'm there from time to time, but so therefore it's not me making sure that it's happening. There isn't a single patient that has ever said, I do not want to use Grin. In fact, moms right away understand the value, because as much as you think moms want to be there, they don't. They don't want to fight traffic for a half hour. They don't want to look for parking. They don't want to take the kids out of soccer to get to your practice. So it has only been something that is extra. We actually do have something in the contract that if they're not taking their Grin scans, they may get charged more because they're going to have to come in more for more visits. But we haven't had to go to that at all. And so generally, our patients are seeing it only as a value. The only patients that haven't been able to utilize is, I do have a small community of very, very Orthodox Hasidic Jews that don't have smartphones. Literally, they have flip phones. That is the only community that obviously cannot use Grin. But other than that, everybody has seen this strictly as a huge value add.
Yeah, my experience has been the same. I think I've had one or two. Like I can literally count on one hand in the last year and a half how many patients didn't want to use it and they were older. And they just didn't like it. And then I had one patient with the flip phone only. So other than that, it's good. Now, of course, like anything, the compliance is not always going to be 100%, right? I mean, there's some patients that don't scan as frequently as you would like to. And in those situations, we do our best to get them back on board. And if we can't, then we just move them to the office. But I kind of like that idea of having something in the contract to maybe just dissuade them from doing that, a little bit of motivation to, because it's a waste of their time. It's a waste of our time. And it really is much more efficient for everyone if they stick with the protocol.
Yeah, we had the same experience too. Just one or two patients that either didn't have a smartphone or a different, maybe older generation that didn't want to do it. But generally speaking, it's been good.
It's fantastic. And I guess we get it almost ended here. The last question was emergencies. Is there a real benefit to using Grin to help with emergency care? I think, Maren, you answered that a little bit, but Dr. Jeremy, Dr. Reynolds, Dr. Scholoff, do you want to address that?
I can take it. I can say that in 3 years, we haven't seen an emergency off hours, period. Hard stop, right? So every single emergency in an orthodontic practice, well, I shouldn't say every single, unless you have a Hyrax that's half in and half out, that's a little bit of a different story. But the cool thing here is patient is taking a scan, a full video with photos of what's happening in their mouth. And then we can get on and either send them a photo back that you mark, hey, I want you to do this right here, or even a video and say, cut the wire right here. And so we used to have on-call assistants. We used to pay them extra to go in. We haven't had an assistant that needed to go in off hours in forever. The other piece of it is things that aren't really emergencies, as we all know, right? You put a little wax on it, it can wait till the morning. When you don't have Grin, you get pushback on the phone. When you have Grin and you're actually talking, or our Grin care team is talking to your patient over the app, they feel more taken care of, and then it's cool for them. They feel better about waiting to the morning. So again, you avoid that emergency off hours.
Yeah, I'll echo that for sure. And even taking that a bit further, we made a couple of YouTube videos on our YouTube channel that we can send out to address some of these type of things. And not that it's a big deal, but hey, that also is going to help our SEO if patients are clicking on that. So there's just so many different ways to help patients in that. And I'll echo what Dr. Scholoff said in the sense that when patients feel like they're heard and feel like you're taking care of them, then it's not really emergency. It's an emotional thing, sometimes more than something else, right?
100% agree. And I wish I only did, clear aligners and never had any emergencies. TADs and MARPs, I do have emergencies. But there's levels of emergency, right? So, I mean, the things that used to get the texts and the calls at the office, the Grin coordinator, they're going to just take care of them. If they know it's not really an emergency, you're never even going to hear about it until the patient calls the office and they'll say, hey, text the office for an appointment. The ones that really are emergencies or that need more care, they're going to first work with talking them through it, seeing like what their actual concerns are. I mean, I had a patient that we delivered a MARPI on yesterday, and the first thing they do is message and Grin. And so, it wasn't really an emergency. They had concerns. Maren was able to address the concerns. And then like later on, I hopped on to chat with the patient when I had time. It wasn't something that they were texting immediately the office or calling the emergency line or anything like that. It was addressed in a great way. Marin took care of it initially. When I had time, it fit in with me. I was able to go on there and chat with the patient as well. So that's how it's helped me.
Great. Appreciate that. And my favorite emergency story, I have to call him out, Dr. Neil Canning, I think who's still on the webinar, is practicing near Kansas City, and they had 2 feet of snow, which means 160 emergencies over a 2-day period because nobody could get to his office. But because he was fully utilizing Grin and a Grin care specialist, he could kick his feet up and enjoy 2 days of instructing his patients to take Grin scans to get updated feedback on the way their case is progressing.